and homes. How's that for low overhead, folks? You know, that's one of the things that we've talked about as a leadership team. And you've heard me say again and again, wow, we have marvelous, amazing, wonderful building. But along with that comes great responsibility. How amazing to be able to think about some of our work in the church being done in home settings with low overhead and high relationship. My prayer is that we continue to work as a church with the bank and all the other places that we're working with to try to lower that mortgage, is that we'll do more home groupings, have more small group conversations, engage more in what was known in the Greek understanding as ecclesia, which was the commissioning and the togetherness of the community of faith. Wherever it was that they found themselves, they found church. How is it that churches can burn down? How is it that churches can be blown away in the rubble of a hurricane and still be church? Because, folks, the church is not the building. The church is the people. The church is the community of faith who comes together and assents to worship in whatever setting in which they find themselves. What we hear that is said by Mike Slaughter is this, that architecture and space are irrelevant to the heart of Christian community. The real calling of the church is not about those things, though it's helpful to have the container to do the ministry. And the container can be part of the ministry. That is not what makes the church. Joel Ryman has a group of students from the university that are working on an MBA project, and they're studying our church. The whole process of who we are, how we got here, how we use our building, our future, our growth. It's an interesting study, to say the least. You might want to be around to hear what their end results are. But as we talk more and more about being the church in this era that seems so devoid of close relationships in some respect because of what technology has done to us. What would it mean to gather more in homes and to get to know each other on a more case-by-case or a one-on-one basis, like the shepherding ministry that we hope to ignite? You don't know, but all of you now have been assigned to a shepherding group. I don't know if any of you have received a call yet, but you have been assigned to a shepherding group so that you might have someone in a small group setting that can love on you, care for you, embrace you, find out how things are going on for you and your family if you've not been here for a couple Sundays, not to be big brother, but to say, we miss you. Is there anything we need to know? The images on the front of your compass are interesting. You have a small church that looks like a church in the Wildwood. Do you know what the second church is? You know whose church that is? I think you've been there. That's Adam Hamilton's church, Church of the Resurrection. The third church is the church in the field. It's the Impact Johnson City Church. What I want us to do as we continue to be the church together and the people of God together is to really expand our images and our concept of what God is, what church is, where we find God, where we find the church, and how it is that you and I make God portable and accessible to other people. This gospel is too good to keep to ourselves. Folks, I'm not suggesting you get out on the corner and do like my granddaddy did, which scared me to death, but I wouldn't take anything for what I learned from him. He would pass people on the streets of Marion, Virginia and say, "Do you know the Lord, brother? Do you know the Lord, sister?" That's just the way he did evangelism. It was his style, and it worked for him. Everybody in town knew him. Here comes Claude. They either wanted to talk to him or run as fast as they could run. But at least, folks, he did it. I like his style of doing evangelism better than your style of mine not doing evangelism, one of the old evangelists used to say. However you do it, do it. Share the love of God. Invite someone to church. Jose Rivera, do you know how Jose got here? He came into the office one day to fix the copier, and Denise said, "Do you have a church home?" And he said, "No, we don't." And Jose and Lisa have been an instrumental part of this church because somebody opened their mouth and asked, Eddie Britton in that daycare, how many people have you told about the church and invited in? Not only have you had to speak, Eddie, your life has been a testimony for what you believe and what you've done. All of us can be a part of carrying God to remote places, to community centers, to places where we work, and invite to the church that has meant so much to us, to the home that has meant so much to us. I think of a story that the bishop told at one of our camp meetings. He told about a pastor whose church had a number of inactives when he came in new. He really wanted to try to explore what the inactivity was about. And he was told that a lot of his parishioners, this came from the bishop himself, a lot of his parishioners had a tendency to gather at a local Hooters restaurant. So, being the good pastor that he was, he went to visit his congregation in the local Hooters restaurant. And he found a couple of his members there, and he began to dialogue with them about, how is it with you? How is it? Tell me about yourself and your family in relationship to the church, and just all of those kinds of pastoral questions that you would expect. What he got is something that led him to the place that he said, well, if you won't come to the church, what if I come to you? And they said, come here to us? He said, yeah, what if we came here and did Bible study? And Hooters, folks, the district pastors began to talk about it. They got word of it. They thought it was inappropriate. They went to his district superintendent. Finally, it made it to the bishop. Oh, by the time it made it to the bishop, the Hooter girls were also participating in the Bible study because some of them didn't feel like they had a church home. Came from the bishop. When it finally reached the bishop, he applauded what the pastor had done. If people don't come to the church for whatever reason, and folks, there are plenty of reasons they don't, then the church should go to them, wherever they are. A Heritage Park Bible School in Heritage Park. Baseball and English camps in the Czech Republic. Coastal oil cleanups by youth groups. Youth groups like our own exploring working with Afghan refugees in Knoxville. Carrying Holy Communion to shut-ins who've long since felt that they have not been a part of the church sacrament. All of those are viable church beyond the walls. I'll leave you with this last thought before we see a quick video. I'm a big believer, many of you know, in doing what I call exit interviews when people choose for one reason or the other to leave the church. And we know that along the way new pastors come in, or new thoughts, or, pastor preaches too much about giving, or pastor can be more direct than she needs to be sometimes. I know I am, but I feel convicted about the things in the leadership of the church. And if I've hurt you ever, I ask your forgiveness. I do this because I love the church, and I want the church to reach people who are starving and hungry for the Word. That's what I want. I really like to engage in exit interviews or coffee conversations with folks who leave to try to understand what could we have done better, and also what could they have done better. It's a mutual proposition. But in the past few weeks, I've decided that sometimes chasing inactives is not the best use of time. Though I have learned a lot from those stories, in some cases I've learned not anything new. I would rather engage in chasing new people, meeting new people, asking new people questions about, do you have a family? Do you have a place to help support you as your family struggles with alcoholism or whatever it is that your youth needs or your child needs? I would rather chase after those kind of folk. I'm not disinterested in those who are no longer here. My staff will tell you, I'll exit interview with anybody who will, but I'm going to give more of my time to be with people who really, really want to have a change and a transformative relationship in their life. Church is not just a noun, folks. It's not just the building. I think sometimes the best church for a generation which can't always understand the language of the church, or that is de-churched, is church as a verb.